Welcome back, Bears fans, to another episode of the Chicago Audible. It is the 6th round. Let's try this again. We're at pick 217 this time, as the Bears did trade away pick 208 to pick up 217. And Nick, it was pick 250, right? I don't have it in front of me. I should have wrote it down.
Yep, pick 250.
So the Bears pick up a seventh rounder.
Yep, 6 picks away from the draft ending. So the Bears like to prolong things here, but hey, they get an extra pick out of it.
They do get an extra pick out of it. Another chance to roll the dice here in the 2021 NFL Draft. Of course, I'm your host, Will DeWitt, joined by my co-host, Nicholas Moriano. We are here to break down what looks like 3 picks in 12, right? We're going to own 3 of the next 12 picks here. So we're going to roll through pretty much the rest of the 6th round here and give you our instant reaction and analysis of the next 3 Chicago Bears picks. So, Mr. Moriano, I think you know the drill. As we wait for the Bears pick to come in, who do you hope it is at this stage, or a group, or just a position, or just give me the lay of the land of where your headspace is at?
Well, very similar to where it was at a couple of minutes ago here, Will, but Cade Johnson from South Dakota State is still there, so I wouldn't mind the Bears taking him there. But again, positional players like wide receiver and cornerbacks. I think Thomas Graham Jr., if I'm not mistaken, is still on the board. So I think that would also be a fit or someone that you can bring in for competition. Actually, I put a percent sign somehow and when I was searching up people. But whatever, I think that would be something that you can be, I don't know, maybe excited about as a Bears fan with 6th round draft picks, right? So wide receiver, cornerback, even if they took an inside linebacker would be something that I'd be, looking to see here.
I'm honestly, at this stage of the draft, Nick, I am keeping all options on the table, and I'm not going to be picky. I know there's a Shakira Brown that I mentioned 3 times now, still sitting there, someone I liked, had in my mock draft. So that's something that I'd be okay with. And outside of that, I just want to see which players that we don't know anything about at this stage that Ryan Pace is going to throw our way. So excited to see how that's going to shake out. And it looks like the Bears are on the clock officially, at least according to my draft tracker now. So we're just kind of waiting. The waiting game is interesting at this point of the draft, and I feel like we've talked about everything that's happened so far, and we just have to be patient, like we've mentioned so far. So patience for the Bears, who I see them finally on my TV, so things are starting to catch up.
Yeah, starting to catch up, and I think just thinking about like years past, like let's go back even just a year, what the Bears last year they addressed their offensive line. The pick is in. Well, we just don't know yet. But last year they addressed their offensive line with those 7th round draft picks. That's kind of how they approached that. It was in the 5th round where they went receiver, cornerback, and edge rusher. And if I'm not mistaken, with the 6th round, I don't know if I'm trying to remember here.
Well, you ready for it? Because I got it this time, mister. It's my time to give you the draft pick. So with the 217th overall pick here in the 2021 NFL Draft, the Bears select Virginia Tech running back Khalil Herbert. So the Chicago Bears are continuing to add to their backfield, which is a position I wasn't expecting them to address. But Nick, you and I were having an interesting talk here just in the green room throughout the afternoon about maybe Tariq Cohen's role evolving a little bit more out of the backfield into a receiver. They already picked up another running back this in free agency to add to the backfield, and here they go again, adding a new guy in Khalil Herbert. So there's another Khalil on the team. That's my first immediate takeaway and reaction to this pick.
Yeah, and this is actually a guy that was at the Senior Bowl as well, and he did have some reps at kick returner. So I'm thinking what the Bears are looking at in this pick is that not only can he maybe be someone that we can throw in the backfield every now and then, maybe especially not, I don't think it's going to be early on. You have some guys already back there, but this is, I think, where he can make an immediate impact for this Bears team is in the kick returning game, because right now that is wide open. You'd rather not put a guy like a Tariq Cohen there who's already coming off ACL surgery and things like that. He's already the punt returner. So I think this would be something that the Bears looked at we can add somebody on special teams. I'm trying to see also if he did do punt returning duty. Just looking at the beast, Dane Brugler's beast off the Athletic. Let's see, offers kick return experience, averaging 23.5 yards in his career. Excellent production as a senior. Okay, so I don't know if he did the punt returning, but he definitely was a kick returner. And like I said, when I was at Mobile, Alabama, he was getting the reps there as a kick returner there. So that's where I can definitely see him be somebody that can make an impact right away for the Bears if, he does well in camp and kind of just shows that trust in this Bears coaching staff.
Apparently, he goes by Juice, and he says they call me Juice for a reason. He brings a little bit of that to the field. Last season, he had about 1,200 yards and 8 touchdowns in the 10 games, and he was second in college football with the yards that went for 50 or rushes that went for 50 or more yards. And I know that I think at his pro day, he put up some pretty good numbers as well. I'm seeing here, I'm trying to pull up the actual numbers, but the article here on Gobbler Country, an SB Nation site, a Virginia Tech Hokies community. I was just talking about how impressive his pro day was. But, of course, we cover a team that we love. We know that sometimes a little bit of maybe bias creeps into some of those articles that are written by fans. So I'll be looking in this just a little bit more. But I do see he was the 8th ranked running back here on the Beast. So that's interesting to say in its own right. There's a pretty decent synopsis here just talking about he had a lot of touches there, over 500 touches throughout his career, and he only fumbled once. So ball security is something that he has in bunches, and he averaged about 7.7 rushing yards per carry and 107.5 rushing yards per game last year. And I'm just excited to see what else we can learn more about him. Did you see anything else that you want to mention here, Nick?
Yeah, just real quick on what he was able to do in his final season there at, Virginia Tech. That's where he had his breakout season. And what I think how this fits into what the Bears are doing, a lot of inside, outside zone running schemes. So that's exactly what the Bears run with Matt Nagy and then also with Juan Castillo and what they want to do with their offensive line. So you see a guy like Khalil Herbert, how he fits. And that's, again, that's going to factor into what the Bears want to do with these later round draft picks. So I see why it makes sense as a running back. But then I keep coming back to being the kick returner for this team. The Bears had one of the best in the game and the best ever to do it in Cordell Patterson. So you just want to have somebody that's going to at least compete to win that spot as a kick returner, averaging, again, I believe I already said this, at 23.5 yards in his career per kickoff return. He had 19 opportunities to do that, 446 yards, no touchdowns, but maybe he'll get an opportunity to, get one of those touchdowns there with the Bears if he does win that job and is able to, hold on to that spot. But yeah, this is something that, look, this draft will, I don't know if I said on one of the podcasts, will the Bears draft a defensive player? And so far they are, they knew they had to provide upgrades on the offense. They knew that coming in. And so far we've definitely seen the upgrades happen pick by pick. And now you're providing depth with another offensive piece, another running back. So it's the Bears had a goal in mind. We need to get the offense a little bit closer to what our defense has done consistently over the years. These picks are starting to make that kind of happen. Maybe not right away, but when you have a franchise quarterback, you have a right tackle now, right tackle and left tackle, and now just another depth piece here. I could see why the Bears are kind of going this route when they know, hey, the defense, despite having some holes on it, they needed to upgrade the offense, and that's kind of been the direction of this Bears draft so far.
So he's 5'9". He is 210 pounds. The NFL player comp here on the PFF draft guide is Jay Ajayi, which that's an intriguing one as well. So if you're thinking about an NFL player that you can mold his game for after, that'd be one to look into, Bears fans. And on top of that, the one that they really like about him, and from an intangible standpoint, is his contact balance. They call it elite, and that is very much in line due to his low center of gravity. But they believe that he was able at Virginia Tech when he was in Kansas they didn't use him properly, but they're at Virginia Tech. They were able to really kind of tap into his potential, and they just kept mentioning as well over and over again. What I'm seeing is that he's just a kind of a player that's a big play waiting to happen. He's someone that he can break tackles left and right and bust out some big gains. So for someone who's entering this backfield, I know we brought in, who was that last year, the guy out of Oregon State, Pierce was his last name, right? Artavis Pierce. I think this is an upgrade over him if you're looking at how this depth chart is shaking out, and if you're looking at maybe 4 running backs on this roster week 1, honestly, between Montgomery, Williams, Cohen, and now you're sitting here with Herbert. So that's I think this is very intriguing, and I like the fact that room, just like the offensive lineman room with the last pick, just gets a lot more crowded and a little bit more complicated, but that's a really good position to be in.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm just seeing some of the highlights here and why the Bears were probably, looking why they wanted to add this kind of player to the roster. The cuts that he makes upfield, they're decisive ones. It's not like he's going left and east and west. It's let's make a cut, let's go upfield, and let's fight through and break a tackle and get as many yards as we can here. And so I like that about what I'm seeing just from the highlights of Herbert. Again, I haven't watched too much of him, especially given what the Bears already did in the offseason with Damian Williams. You didn't think maybe the Bears were just going to leave this position alone in the draft, but obviously they thought, hey, we could still provide upgrades. I wonder if this means finally, and not to say this in a negative way, but for a guy like Ryan Nall, who has been making the roster for, a while now, does this kind of mean the end for a guy like that? Obviously, he's a special teams contributor when he is a part of the 53 active roster, but now that you add another running back, you already signed Damian Williams in the offseason, which is going to be a clear fit given that he already is with Kansas City. Where does it kind of end for Ryan Nall or Artavis Pierce, guys that are at the back end, obviously, of this running back depth? That's just maybe something to also consider now when you bring a guy in like this. Even though he's a 6th-round draft pick, again, no guarantees here, but you can see the upside and how he can also, like I was mentioning earlier, contribute on special teams.
Very well. By the way, we're back on the clock here at 221, so I'll be keeping an eye for this next pick to come in. While we wait, I want to mention I found out that he had 4 runs that went 50-plus yards. He did have 1 kickoff return that went for a touchdown. It was called back, so that's why you're not going to see it on the stat sheet, but that's something else that you should know as well. And he's someone that, again, he led the FBS in yards per carry, 7.68, and he led the ACC in all-purpose yards last year with 1,791 yards. Again, balance is the one that keeps coming, as well as ability to be a receiver out of the backfield, and he's just someone that continues to churn out big numbers. And the only knock I see him this one is his age. He's a little older at 23 years old, so he's a little older than some of the other players that are coming out. So Bears are on the clock, and I see that the pick is in.
All right, we are on a roll.
We are on a roll. The pick is in, and we got wide receiver Dazz Newsome here at pick 221. So,
all right, well,
offense is rolling, dude. We are just throwing bodies at offense left and right. Let's learn more about Dazz Newsome.
One, he's got an interesting name that I again, Dazz, D-A-Z-Z. I don't even, what school are we even looking at here from Dazz Newsome? North Carolina. I know a guy that came from North Carolina not too long ago. But yeah, let's check it out here. We got Dane Brugler's The Beast from The Athletic up. See what we can find out about Dazz Newsome, 5'10", 190. A guy that in 2020, again, shortened season, 54 receptions, 684 yards, 6 touchdowns. Honorable mention, all ACC. Also had a rushing touchdown.
This is 40 time. Oh, wait.
Oh yeah, not
457. Yeah, it wasn't great. The one I'm going through, and you do like Command F, and you just like search through the list. The one above wasn't Dazz, and it was a 429, and I was like, oh.
That is not Dazz Newsome. He runs a 4.57
Yeah,
4.5740.
I see a 4.59 here on the PFF grade, but yeah, not nearly the same speed that I was thinking about there momentarily. But it looks like slot is his projection, though, based off what I'm seeing. Operates best in the slot. Didn't really expand that role throughout his time in college, so that's the knock on him. He's not someone that people are projecting can go out and play outside receiver. But he does have 18 deep catches over the past 2 seasons, which is up there in the NCAA. And he is someone that is really good at breaking tackles, it looks like. He had over 14 broken tackles or more in 3 straight seasons. So he's someone that once he comes down with that catch, he is hard to take down.
Yeah, and it looks like he was a running back in high school. So when you see the yards after the catch, the kind of mentality that he has when he has the ball in his hands, it's just that physical nature that he brings. So that makes sense as to why he's able to break tackles and get yards after the catch. When he transitioned to become that slot receiver in North Carolina, he was one of only 5 players at UNC to reach 2,400 career receiving yards. So again, a versatile threat, like you said, Will, has explosive play opportunities in him. So, and this obviously makes sense for the Bears because of what they currently have at their slot receiver position in Anthony Miller, and just the question marks that are kind of surrounding him at this point of his career, not being very stable or consistent, and especially being a former second-round draft pick that the Bears had to go up and get. You need to create competition there. And now we talked about how Charles Leno Jr. probably felt with the guys, with the tackles that the Bears already drafted. Now I wonder how he's kind of looking at this, if he's even, looking at this point right now. But it's a wide receiver that obviously the Bears need to address that in that slot, that zebra role in Matt Nagy's offense. So again, we were expecting a wide receiver at some point in this draft. Happened maybe a little later than we would have expected, but again, it stays consistent with what the Bears are trying to do. Improve this offense, provide some depth on this offense, just to, again, make it a little bit more balanced on this team. It was very defensive heavy in terms of the strengths. Now we're trying to get the offense to kind of match that a little bit more, and adding another playmaker for Justin Fields to potentially use down the road.
Yeah, we keep adding logs to the fire here. Something I do want to mention, just a couple of knocks that I've seen so far. They come with his route running. It's pretty well documented here as sloppy, and that needs to be continued to work on. He's not super deadly on double moves. He can be shifty, again, after he has the ball in his hands, but as a route runner, he needs to work in that regard. And then the other one, and it's an unfortunate one for me, it's a history with drops. He had 20 drops on 208 career catchable balls. So that's a drop on almost 1 out of every 10 ball thrown his way that was deemed as catchable. So watching for some of those drops will be something that we need to make sure that he can clean up and work through. But that's just something I wanted to make sure that we did mention here. I'm glad they went wide receiver, though. Obviously, I think throughout our mocks and a lot of Bears fans, a lot of people had him going receiver a little bit earlier in this draft. They didn't do that, but I think they got an interesting guy here who can play in the slot, which is a position that I know we're all kind of looking. He's 5'10", 190, and I see here in the Beast he has a 5th round grade. PFF gave him a 6th round grade, about the 171st graded prospect over there in PFF. So I still think there's a good value at 221, but that's just kind of where things are falling there for Dazz Newsome.
Gotcha. And I'm just trying to find interesting little tidbits about Newsome and kind of what makes him tick and what he's like. He used to, when he was playing youth football, sleep in his jersey, his football pants, and high socks before games, just because he was that kind of passionate about it and ready to go. He wouldn't wear everything but his shoulder pads and helmet. Myron Newsome said of his son's preferred game eve sleepwear. He'd get up, brush his teeth, and be ready to go. He wouldn't eat anything until after the game. And this is an article by Norm Wood on if you just look up, he slept in his uniform as a kid. Now former Hampton High star Dazz Newsome awaits his NFL dream. So that was a little right from the very beginning of that article. You get to see how passionate and how much he loves the game. And of course, all these guys are going to be, love the game, but just seeing that someone is that eager to play. They sleep in their uniform right before game days. That's pretty interesting and cool.
And he also is a punt returner there at North Carolina. So we're adding another player, back-to-back players now that have return experience. And I do want to mention a fun fact. He did have at least one reception in 41 straight games to close out his collegiate career. And I think 41 games is pretty well known. That's a good portion of it, to say the least. But, Nick, you mentioned Anthony Miller for a minute. I don't think you can look at this pick immediately and go, yep, Miller's gone. This is a guy who's going to replace him here in 2021. But you hope it's a little bit, a little bit of a fuel to add to the fire to either get more out of Miller or at least put some pressure on some of the other guys, even like a Riley Ridley, even like a Javon Wims in this wide receiver room to step up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they have to, because this is a guy that, look, we were talking, one guy that you liked earlier, Will, was Dane Brown, right, from North Carolina. Well, back in 2019, it was Dazz Newsome who led the team in receptions with 72. It was a 1,000-yard receiver with his 10 touchdowns. So even though there's capable playmakers on that offense with a guy that went earlier than him, he still led the team in those receptions there. And despite like having some flaws, like we mentioned with route running and drops, he showed that he could be capable. So with a Bears wide receiver room that has shown guys really haven't lived up to maybe some of the expectations. And I know Javon Wims, 7th-round draft pick, you don't really expect much, but still we've seen some inconsistencies obviously from him and Anthony Miller. But yeah, you definitely have to be on guard, on edge, and knowing that, hey, someone else is now coming for my job. There's someone now in the building who can take my position. And if they continue playing that the way that they have, being inconsistent, obviously Javon Wims dropping the touchdown pass in the wild card game, things of that, and Riley Ridley just not making it on the field, whether that's coaching or on him, we don't really know. But now you have to be ready. And it's only for the best for the team if a guy like Dazz Newsome takes that spot, because that's obviously means he's outperforming the competition there and showing to the coaching staff, you can trust me. Like, it's very similar to what a Darnell Mooney did. If that happens, again, best case scenario for the Bears, they get someone that is proving to the coaching staff he can play, he can be productive, he can make an impact. So absolutely, if you're Anthony Miller and those other guys on this wide receiver room, not named Darnell Mooney, Marquise Goodwin, and of course Allen Robinson, you're looking at this like, all right, I better step my game up or I will not have a job anymore.
Yeah, it's real interesting. I can believe, but I can't believe, and I want to find out the last time that the Bears stacked picks on one side of the ball like this, especially offense, right? Like every single pick, like I can't recall a time that I've seen it so heavily one-sided.
Yeah, it's been a while. The only other, like, this is not even the same team. I know the Carolina Panthers last year, I think, if I'm not mistaken, they took all defense with every single pick. So that's like the last time I've seen a team do this, not let alone the Bears. But seeing that they are going strictly on the offensive side, I wonder if it's going to change. Like, yes, maybe you can take a cornerback, a nickel corner. Still not knowing who's actually left on the board. I'm pretty sure Thomas Graham Jr. didn't go yet, so maybe that could be an option. But I saw someone in the chat say, what about the wide receiver from Illinois? I don't know if he's been taken, but just that physical presence, and just blanking on the name right now. He's a big Marvel fan, though. That's all I know. But I think it's going to stick with this offensive mind where you want to just improve this side of the ball, because that's what needs it most right now.
Yeah, no, it really does. I don't know if he is available. I'm kind of going through the list of available. Oh, he would be the very last one. You're talking about Josh Imatorabahaba.
I think so.
Okay.
That sounds about right.
I feel bad, but my best real attempt would be Imator. There's a lot of BHEs in a row, which is really interesting. I don't have a pronunciation guide for him in front of me. I'm just on ESPN site looking at, but he's the dead last ranked receiver left available according to, again, ESPN. Everyone has their own rankings. It's hard to even keep track sometimes. All I see is that Shakira Brown's the top ranked player available on ESPN. And I still think that would be a fun one. Washington's pick is in, so we're getting a little bit closer. We're up to pick 226, so we're almost reaching our third and final pick here in the 6th round. Nick, I'm glad that these picks are moving a little bit quicker too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when you're here, the draft starting at 11 o'clock Central Time, and now seeing that it's 4:30 over here, it's a long time here waiting for these draft picks and having this gap. So yeah, I'm glad.
Looks like he froze again for me, Mr. Nick. I'm sure you'll be back any moment.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I was looking at the TV and just noticing, hey, I froze, but
you're good.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens. You're right. One thing I like about both these picks, though, is their ability to do things after the catch or with contact, right? Because you're looking at the running back Khalil Herbert. He is someone who was 4th in the nation last year in yards after contact, and then his average rushing yards after contact per carry tied for the fifth most of all running backs last year. And then, as we just talked about with Dazz Newsome, he's someone as well that is tremendous after he gets the ball in his hands and he's able to make defenders miss better than most receivers. So I see a theme here, and we're looking at guys with the ball in their hands being able to create some plays. And I think it makes a lot of sense when you look at where the Bears are moving this offense. And if you have a guy like Justin Fields, with his accuracy, to put the ball where it needs to be to get it into the hands of these playmakers and let everyone else do their thing, that's exciting. So I see a little bit of a theme there between both these picks. Guys that can create some stuff after contact, making defenders miss, and those are traits that you do want to see in any skill position. And running back and wide receiver back-to-back picks makes me pretty damn excited just looking at that.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, like we're maybe talking about, what can the Bears do with these picks? Are you just going to go maybe the physical upside where the guys, they have the look and, the physical traits? And it's not that these guys don't have that. They're just not your, typical these crazy 40 times and like being tall or whatever it may be. These are guys that, yeah, like you said, production yards after the catch. Yes, they have their flaws, and maybe they're not the best route runners. Even both of them, going back to Herbert, one of the flaws for him was that he's not the best route runner out of the backfield. And we know with just Dazz Newsome, according to his scouting reports, can work out his route running. So things that you have to give and take with 6th round draft picks, right? Where it's not going to be, everything's going to be obviously great. They wouldn't be there in the 6th anyway if that was the case. But yeah, it's not the typical athlete, I guess, Ryan Pace has been accustomed to kind of taking, whether it's early on in the draft or later. But yeah, that's a good way of kind of looking at what's the commonality between these guys. Yards after catch, physical, with the ball in their hands, can make some plays in the open field. So that's what the Bears need more of, really. If you look around just the last couple of seasons, they just didn't have enough of that. And could it be quarterback play, offensive line, not giving the quarterback time to actually connect with guys? Sure, but you actually just need the guys to do it, and then you can see if you can actually execute the plays there.
Bears are officially back on the clock, Nick. So let's take a breather, reassess where this thing is going. If I'm going to put my Ryan Pace hat on, I'm going to do something that nobody's expecting, which means we're going to draft. I mean, it's going to stay on offense at this stage, right? Maybe we go punter. I think I saw someone just drafted a long snapper like 2 picks ago, if I saw the highlights correctly over on my screen out of the side of my eye. So that's a little interesting. But pick 228, Nick. I know you have a long laundry list of players that you would love to take at 228 that you've been diving deep in on over the last 3 to 4 months. But in all seriousness, do you have any hunches or anything that you wanted to mention before this pick is made?
Trying to see here, just looking at that board, see if anyone actually really does make sense in terms of position or potential upside. And everything, it is so. You know what? They haven't taken really an edge. Well, they haven't taken a defense guy. What if I'll just give the position. They'll go edge rusher, and I don't know who, but maybe a sixth round edge rusher. Or man, Shakira Brown is still there from Michigan State. I'm wondering why he's still here. I think Dane Brugler had a 3rd or 4th round grade on the guy. He showed he could be physical and has that ability to jump routes and play being versatile, playing outside and inside. Why not take a swing on that on a guy like that? So I'm going defense. You're going to finally change it up here.
I kind of hope you're right. I see Dirk is asking for Whop Hilliard from IU, which I had a lot of fun watching Whop here in the Cream and Crimson in Bloomington, Indiana. One of AJ's favorite players, number 1 at IU. He's another fast, shifty wideout, although I doubt they go with another wideout, which means they will. But it looks like we should be able to find out who this pick is any minute. It'd be nice, though, to address the defense just a little bit. But I'm also taking this as a big bit of confidence that they must have on the players on this side of the ball. And also maybe the urgency that they're feeling to really start that youth infusion with the offensive side, just based off how this draft has been going so far.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. They may just feel confident there with Kendall Vilder or Duke Shelley at nickel corner, kind of battling it out there. So that obviously seems to be the case because the Bears have not taken anybody to put any competition there. But I'm just scrolling down, refreshing Twitter. It usually pops up there. Oh, there he is. Yes, they got him. Well, according to Draft Diamonds, Thomas Graham Jr., a guy that I really liked as a nickel corner from Oregon, and someone that does fit that role for that nickel cornerback spot. So I think that will be, according to Draft Diamonds, that's the only one I'm seeing right now, but hopefully, it kind of picks up here where we see that he is officially, not that Draft Diamonds.
I was going to say, NFL Draft Diamonds on Twitter, they've been on it. Like every time it comes out, it's correct. So I'm going to have confidence in there. So the 228th overall pick, we got DB, Thomas Graham, and Nicky Thuan Jr. there. So I'll make sure I follow up there. Thomas Graham Jr.
Yep, Thomas Graham Jr., a guy that at Oregon, just in his time there, really productive, just at getting his hand on the ball. Just in the 3 seasons that he played there, 40 passes defended well. So he is usually in the right position. And when I was in Mobile, Alabama, and you saw all these great wide receivers, didn't matter what team it was on or, what day it was, Thomas Graham Jr., I thought, was the most consistent at providing the most resistance in trying to cover these guys one-on-one. And look, doing that as a DB is tough in itself. It's always oriented towards the offense, the wide receiver to win that type of drill. But Thomas Graham Jr. has the flexibility, the hip flexibility and movement to make some plays and just to cover guys. I saw the face, Will. What you got?
Just things that pop up that make you smile when you're looking into a prospect. He was the 78th ranked player on PFF's top 200 big board. And I look at his biggest strength is a word that we've been buzzing for the last 3 days, patience. And his NFL comp, Malcolm Butler.
Yeah, that's a very I like that pick. I think what you see with him is instincts and just positioning of where that's why he makes all these plays on the ball. He's not the biggest guy, only 5'10", 190, but actually that's a pretty good size for a nickel corner to be able to, one, move in space, and then once the wide receiver makes his cut, Thomas Graham Jr. can undercut that and be right there. So this is a guy, like, if you want to see what he's all about, obviously go back and watch what he did at Oregon, but see what he did in a setting where you have some of the best seniors in the country
after
and watch those Senior Bowl reps. Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, this is a guy that I think is just productive in the time that he's had, and he did that, and that's a really good point, Will. He took that year off and still showed out at the Senior Bowl, which I think speaks volumes to the athlete and what he did in the downtime to stay prepared and stay well in his technique. So that's a really good point.
Yeah, no, he took that year off, and so that hurt his grade a little bit. PFF projected he would go in a 3rd round. I'm curious what the Beast would have a round grade on him. Do you have it in front of you?
Yeah, so 4th round grade.
Okay, so again, 3rd or 4th round grade. We got him here at 228. So even though there's guys like maybe like a Dazz Newsome earlier as well with Borum, you're like, oh, are they reaching a bit? But again, everyone's boards, they fall differently. The stack and the order is just a little bit different. And I like this one as well. It's really cool. I see that just when you look at this, he doesn't have the biggest speed. And I think what hurts him, based off what I'm seeing, is that he's not the most freakish athlete out of the draft class. But what they say here is that even though he's not one of those top-tier athletes, he's so sound in his fundamentals, his footwork, his football IQ, and his preparation that he could still end up being one of the most reliable corners taken in this draft. And we got him here at the very end, pretty much, of the 6th round. And I love his aggressiveness that I see. He attacks through the catch point without hesitation. Force and incompletion rate, according to PFF, of 15.9% over the past 2 years. And their bottom line is Graham looks like one of the more schemed, diverse, and versatile corners in this class. He just doesn't have a high-end trait, which, again, sometimes you don't need to be the best athlete if you can put yourself in a position to succeed. And almost reminds me a bit of like a Kyle Fuller. I don't think anyone said that Kyle Fuller is the best athlete, but he always put himself right where he needed to be with his preparation. And like we said, preparation is a big reason why he was able to go to the Senior Bowl, show no rust, and still performed at a high level that, Nick, you were able to see down there in your time in Mobile, Alabama.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is a pick that I had. What was it? Mock Draft 2.0. I believe I pegged him here around. I think it was the 5th round draft pick that the Bears actually had at that point. But yeah, this is a pick that makes another pick that makes a lot of sense for Ryan Pace and what they kind of want to add there in terms of competition. And Kindle Vildor last year, when he had time, when Jalen Johnson went down, he was playing outside corner. And yes, he did kind of struggle in that Jacksonville game, but maybe that's where the Bears see him more as a cornerback. Maybe it's outside as a depth piece, and then you have Thomas Graham Jr., Duke Shelley kind of battling it out, and you could still throw Kindle Vildor in there, but now that you have a guy like this, it does. For me, I'm really going to be just looking forward to how that nickel corner kind of plays out, because it's obviously a very important position. It's one that you see way more often than you would have seen 10 years ago, as the NFL has kind of transitioned more to a passing game. But yeah, he has all the intangibles that you want out of the position. Not the best athlete, like you said, and I think for me, when I was watching the Senior Bowl game, it was Amari Rodgers. So he's going to have an opportunity, Will, to go against Amari Rodgers in Green Bay, who got the best of him in the game. You watch that game between Thomas Graham Jr. and Amari Rodgers. Rodgers won the matchup in the game. I would say practices, maybe even I would almost maybe even lean to Thomas Graham's side. But in the game, Amari Rodgers got him, and they will be seeing each other, I think, again, obviously, with the Bears and Packers 2 times a year. So that will be something I think would be fun little storyline. Like, I remember what you did to me in Mobile. Let's see how I can get it back in Green Bay or in Chicago. So that'll be interesting to watch as well.
You have to wonder if he played this year, where his draft stock would have gone compared to what these reports were coming out and versus what actually just happened here throughout this weekend. The coaches call him a high competitor, always been that way from a young age, and he's described as a smart, mature, and student of the game by his coaches, and it was evident because he was able to play as a true freshman, where he did lead the team with 3 interceptions. In 2018, he did lead the team in pass deflections, and it was also 3rd in the FBS with those 21 pass breakups that year. And he led the team with pass breakups the following year as well, with 12 more in 2019 before he took that year off. So he's someone, even though he doesn't have those physical tools, I think just knowing he had 8 interceptions and 40 passes defensed in his collegiate career, even though he took an entire year off, is such great evidence of what kind of student of the game he is and how he can put himself right there where he needs to be. He doesn't need to be the fastest or the strongest or the tallest or the one that could jump the highest, because he knows how to get where he needs to be in order to make a play. And that sometimes you can't coach things like that. Those are some of those high football intangibles that you want to ensure that you're keeping on your team or adding to your team. And the Bears did that here. When I look at his future, I know you mentioned maybe, if they like him in the slot to start that first year, if he is one of the better defenders and you can get your best 3, I'd be open to it. I don't know if he played in the slot at all throughout his time. And if not, and we're playing the patience game that we're going to keep, I'll hit it one more time. You have Trufant as that 1-year stopgap, and then you have your Jalen Johnson, and then you have your Graham here after the fact. So I can see this being a pick that has, low risk right now, high reward come really his future here in Chicago. I'm very excited about this pick.
Yeah, me too, Will. And I think it is a good point. Like, I project him to be that nickel corner despite him primarily playing on the outside at Oregon and obviously having a lot of success there given the stats that we read off earlier today. But, man, I think his ability to move in space, that's why I can project him to be that nickel cornerback spot, because you need to be able to do that. And not to say that he can't be an outside corner. It's just he would have such a, everything needs to play out where coaching development, things of that nature, scheme, whatever. But I think, where he can have just an impact, maybe even in 2021, the closest to having an impact on defense would be that nickel cornerback spot. But yeah, the Bears could be taking it in that consideration. 2022, what can we do there, and move on and see what Thomas Graham is all about.
Yeah, I mean, for me, just based off what we're hearing and seeing and learning more about here on the fly, my brain immediately says outside corner, because if you're not the best athlete, you need to use that boundary as your friend and learn how to leverage that. And I think that could be a big tool for him throughout his career, because if you're not the fastest or most agile, when you're in the slot in the middle of the field where you don't have that boundary right there and you have to cover more field and be a little bit more adaptive depending on the routes that are thrown at you, and you have to cover a lot more space sometimes in a horizontal fashion, then I think he can struggle maybe there. So that's just looking at what we're hearing about what he's good at and projecting how that fits in the Bears defense. I don't know if nickel would be his best fit long term, but if he does get him on the field and he's better than Duke Shelley or Kindle Vildor, then it's still an immediate win. And then maybe sliding him outside would be what's best for him moving forward in his career and for this defense. That's just my thoughts here on the fly.
Yeah, I'm just trying to think. Obviously, just looking back at the past nickel corners for the Bears, you have Buster Screen, and then also Bryce Callahan, who went undrafted. Trying to pull up their 40 time, just what they did at pro days, but it's not coming up and being nice with me. But yeah, I think even though, maybe not the best physical athlete, but if you can move those hips, you could turn on a dime, you could shadow receivers, regardless of where you have the sideline or not. If I think he kind of views himself as a cornerback, because at the Senior Bowl, they kind of switched it up a little bit. You're going to be inside on the side, you're going to be outside. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see if we're able to go to training camp. Where exactly is this guy even lining up? So that second and third team is going to be interesting to watch. And, we'll have to, again, wait and see. And hopefully we get that opportunity to be at training camp to see what these guys can do in the competition battles. That will be interesting to watch. But, yeah, it's going to be I'm actually looking forward to seeing what Ryan Pace has to say in these press conferences, because we got a little indication last year with Kindle Vildor how Ryan Pace said, he can play inside and outside. And, I think we've seen a little bit of that even in the limited opportunity. So how are they even viewing him? Is it nickel corner? Is it outside? I bet you just we see him as a guy that can play both. But, so we'll have to wait and see him.
According to his bio on the Oregon Ducks website, he entered the season as the FBS active leader in passes defended with 40, pass breakups with 32, one of the 3 returning FBS players with double-digit PBUs as well in 2018 and 2019, tied for 7th among active FBS players with those 8 career interceptions. He was one of only 21 players in 2019 that had 60 or more tackles and 10-plus PBUs. So I think he's someone, the production speaks for itself, and I'm excited to see how that can translate here to the NFL. And I think the Bears, worst case, best case, you want to look at this pick, I think worst case, hey, you know what? That athleticism really hurt him. In the NFL, he couldn't keep up. And unfortunately, maybe he's just a special teamer. Best case, he turns out to be your starting corner opposite of Jalen Johnson here. Maybe not as a rookie, but then 2022 and beyond. And then you have a pretty solid duo for years to come if he does live up to that Malcolm Butler comparison that we saw over in the PFF draft guide. So I think that's my best case. Worst case, how about you?
So, worst case, the physical jump that you're making into the NFL. He's just not able to stay with guys like he did at Oregon and able to have that ball production. So, and he just kind of flanks out, and it's maybe just a special teamer that you'll see every now and then jumping on team to team. But my best case still is that he is that nickel corner, that more so that he could still transition to play that position because of what he's done in college on the outside. You can now move it inside and see how he can translate a little bit there and just learn the game a little bit. Look, Duke Shelley was primarily an outside corner at, what is it, Kansas State, if I'm not mistaken. And then they kind of due to size, I would assume. But again, not the biggest guy with Thomas Graham Jr. being 5'10", 190-ish. But maybe that's the new role for him. But I think that's how I see the best case scenario, that you can take one of these 6th-round draft picks and make him your next nickel corner. Just similar how Bryce Callahan got the position, some years ago, being an undrafted guy, winning out and showing out in camp and showing that he could be productive and earn himself a big contract going to Denver with Vic Fangio. So that would be my best case scenario.
Okay. All right. So out of all these 6th-round picks, Nick, who do you like the most?
I got to go with my guy, Thomas Graham Jr. It's a guy that I've had him pegged in my second mock draft. I've watched him when he was at Mobile, Alabama. I've just been familiar with him and knowing what he can do, and just seeing how he was able to compete against some of the best seniors in the country when I was down there in January. So I really liked this pick, and I was just waiting for, the Bears.
Oh, man, your internet is not being nice right now, man. I know it's been through a lot. It's been a long weekend hanging out with me over the stream.
Okay. So I don't know where it cut off there or if it's even working now.
You're here.
But I like Thomas Graham Jr. just to kind of end it on that one.
Right? Like, let's not tempt the fates anymore. I just like Thomas Graham Jr. He's going to be good. I know we kind of had to move fast, so I do want to kind of take some steps back. I'm going to hope that your internet can kind of work through us here for some additional questions here. But let's go back one. Dazz Newsome, best case, worst case for him.
Yeah, Dazz Newsome, I think he's a start. We'll go even best case to start off. He's a starting slot receiver, maybe not 2021 if Anthony Miller's still on the roster, but you see more of a Darnell Mooney type of role in terms of, I think, snap counts, where you see like the trajectories going in his favor. That would be a great, a best case scenario for him. Worst case is that the drops are a problem. The route running never gets improved, and he kind of stays status quo at where he's at. So that would be the worst case for me. And then again, he's maybe just a special teamer and can't really find a role in the offense. Look, if it ends up being anything like a Riley Ridley is at this point, can't even see the field, you definitely don't want that to happen. But best case easily is like being more active in the actual offense, especially that slot position.
Okay, I don't think I can disagree with anything you said. Let's go back to Khalil. What was his last name?
Herbert.
Khalil Herbert. I need to have my notepad updated. I need someone next to me to write all these down, so then I don't have to. So Khalil Herbert, best case, worst case. I think worst case. Again, at this stage of the draft, his worst case, maybe he's just a practice squad player and doesn't see a lot of the field. Best case, maybe he's someone that is a pretty good player in your rotation right now and ends up being like a second head in a 2-back type of system moving forward, and can be a good guy to be a change of pace back, a spell back, give David Montgomery a break, and change things up there for the offense, give him something a little bit different in that kind of dynamic. Any other additional thoughts on Khalil Herbert?
Khalil Herbert, I think best case, like he's a immediate contributor at the kick returner position, and even Dazz Newsome can maybe battle it out there. But I think Khalil Herbert, if he's going to make an impact on his team, best case would be for him to just be a solidified kick returner, start off his career, and then you can kind of see maybe the reps as the running back come in later. Like I said, the Bears just signed Damian Williams. They have Tariq Cohen. They have the 5th leading rusher in David Montgomery. It's not like they need to get Herbert his touches in the backfield early on. They have guys to do that. So I think kick returner would be immediate contributor at kick returner is your best case. Worst case, look, just maybe it's like a Ryan Nall or Tavius Pierce type of role where your depth just on the roster And every now and then, if an injury happens, you'll see the field.
Okay. As we look at the 6th round, now that it's come and gone, I don't think it's worth going through every player and giving every player a grade since we didn't do it on the fly. So how about we just lump them all together and let's just grade Ryan Pace's job here with his in the 6th round. I think that needs to include the trade back and the 3 players that we selected so far. I know it's slightly incomplete because we don't know how we're going to wrap up here with pick 250, but we can give that one an individual grade here soon. So if you would have to grade the 6th round here by the Bears and Ryan Pace, what would you give it?
Yeah, the Bears potentially have a new kick returner. And however you want to look at Thomas Graham Jr., someone that can contribute as a cornerback on this defense, I think sooner rather than later. And then you have obviously Dazz Newsome at the slot. Like there's potential there. So at the 6th round, you're not expecting to have guys like that have this, I think, high end potential to actually contribute, not maybe become solidified players in the league, but contribute on this Bears team. So I'll give it a B+. Will, I like what the Bears were able to do coming out of this 6th round, especially ending it with a Thomas Graham Jr., a guy that I'm really fond of.
Yeah, the Thomas Graham Jr. really is the icing of the cake here. Honestly, like looking into him, learning more about him, I really feel strongly that if he played in 2020, he probably would have been gone in the top 3 rounds at this position. But some teams probably, you get some of that, was it recency bias? You see players who played this season, and so you forget some of the production that happened from players in the past. So for me, that's the icing on the cake. Overall, I'm right there with you, A-, B+. It's hard to really argue with what the Bears are doing right now. They've bolstered so much depth here in the 6th round at some key positions. Running back, which is a position that I feel like is ignored, and I'm glad that they were able to invest a draft pick in it. I wanted them to do that last year. They didn't. They went with the undrafted free agency route, and they also went the free agent this year in the position. So I'm liking throwing all the bodies into it. And then at wide receiver, someone that plays in a slot feels like a natural need for the Bears. Again, kind of lights a fire into that room. I know a few of them probably feel like, hey, one of us, like if they're all in there soon, they'll be looking at each other like, well, we're all not going to be here come week 1, so I need to make sure I'm on this roster and I'm doing what it takes for me to make this team. And so I think that competition is going to really elevate some of the play that we're going to see out of that unit as well. So it's really hard to argue with what Ryan Pace is able to do here so far. I'm loving this draft, man. I'm just loving this draft so much.
No, it's been great, and I could see it in the chat here. People are happy with what the Bears have done, and honestly, you can't really say that too many times with this team and what they've done in terms of the players that they've selected. And just a lot of the picks just make sense, and that I think will make a lot of the fan base happy. So yeah, I'm really happy and pleased with what he's been able to do. Yes, you can argue about trade ups and what he gave up, but I think when you look at the players, you look at the picks, you look at the value, and you look at the potential, yeah, Ryan Pace has had a good draft, and that's okay to say.
These aren't words that should be banned to say, but I mean, there was the point where we thought he was stringing together some pretty good drafts, and he had some pretty decent picks in each and every draft, and this one just it feels like he's doing a real good job. And I know there's always risks. We don't know how this is really going to pan out, but when you put it on paper here today, which we all know, Nick, and I say this every year, the most accurate grade you can give a draft class is this, the immediate ones that we do right now. Like, you don't have to wait a few years to see how players pan out. The grades that we put today are solidified. They're on a permanent record, and they're so accurate.
Sorry, well, I had it muted there, but of course. I mean, that's how it always goes. Like our mock drafts, like they're always correct, no matter what. That's just how it goes in this business here. But yeah, we'll have to, I think, let's see, you're going to immediately know what Tevin Jenkins is about, because that's a starter right away. Can't really say the same about Borum just yet, or even obviously Justin Fields, what Ryan Pace was saying a couple nights ago, that it is Andy Dalton who will start week 1, and then we'll see when we finally see Justin Fields. But I think, a lot of these players, once 2022 hits, you're going to see everything about this draft and what it can potentially do. But there'll be sprinkles of each one of them making appearances in 2021 for sure.
So I guess my next question to you, it's a little bit more personal, and it's about our podcast. We have about 9 picks until we're back on the clock, and I'm hoping they go quick. Do we just kind of stay on this stream and roll through it? Because I feel like by the time we get off and we start to edit the audio to get it out to the podcast, we're going to be back on the clock, and that one should be a quick one. It's just 1 pick in the 7th round. We're not going to, unless they somehow find another gem that we're going to start gushing over, it shouldn't be too much longer, but that's up to you. We got like 10, 11 picks, and we'll back on the clock. We're in interesting territory.
We are in interesting territory. I think we can fill the gap, fill the time here, and just kind of stay on here. Like, we have a good group of people watching. We can, see what people are thinking and just kind of fill time for now. But yeah, I think they have been going quicker with the picks, which has been nice. Like what I was saying earlier, if they just get one of those Olympic speed walkers just to kind of get the picks in and out, man, we would be efficient and going here. But I think, look, you can fill the time with whatever we want to really talk about, because, yeah, the picks are the picks, whatever. But would you go to one of these, Will? Like a draft there's no way.
Actually, yes. Right? I'll change my mind. Yes. Okay. I say no because I do not want to sit there, and I do not want to have it just be boring. But if we did a meetup with a lot of Bears fans that wanted to hang out with us to talk football and have that experience, okay, awesome. But if I'm going to go there incognito, maybe you're there. Even then, I love you, man, and I love hanging out with you, but I think we could find a better use of our time. We don't get to see each other in person too much.
No, so here's what I would think we would do. Like, if it was in Nashville or something and not in Cleveland, you go see the pick. All right. And we bring that group of people. That same group, after that pick is done, we then go find a local bar. And then you can get food and watch the draft and not lose anything. Yes, it's cool being, like, I guess, hearing everything and just seeing the excitement. But, man, like, after the first pick, if you have multiple picks that day, like, let's take this somewhere else. Let's go get some food, get some drinks, just watch the drafts. Like, honestly, Will, if we could do this in person, I'm sure we would have food and drinks and be watching it and, be able to do it that way. But, yeah, for sure, I don't think I'd want to, I don't know, be there, I would say. Unless it was media. We were covering media. Oh, yeah, there he is. Thomas Graham Jr. making play. In Oregon.
On YouTube.
Man, Oregon has just the best uniforms. Or, well, they have so many uniforms. But that's – okay, maybe the numbers are too big now that I look at that one.
No,
that's
hold on. I'm
trying to – huge number 4.
There we go. Now we're on the screen. So, yeah, we can wait 10 picks. We can watch some highlights. Again, this is coming from Boost is the channel. I like to make sure we give people credit. They work hard on these things. Yeah, Boost Graphics. They have more subscribers than us. So congratulations on that.
Yeah, seriously. But, yeah, like, I think with Thomas Graham Jr., even though he may not get the interception, he's just in position to, make plays on the ball. And look, that's the second best thing. Obviously, you want to see the interception. I mean, he did have some there at Oregon over his 3 years, but when you have a guy that's just in a position as consistently as he is, that provides hope of what he can do in the NFL. Because if you're not, you don't have
he's
that.
Aggressively attacking the catch point. Like, every single one of these reels, you're just seeing him take on the receiver. As soon as that ball is in the vicinity, he's going to make sure he's going to do what it takes to make sure you can't catch that thing. Whether he gets his hand up, his hand right into catch point, like, he's fun to watch. Look at that violent finish at the end too.
Yeah, even fighting through a block on screenplays. Like, again, we talk about not the biggest guy, but you need to be physical and aggressive and have that mentality as a corner. And being able to pursue guys like that and close off rushing lanes, that's what you want out of a guy, especially a 6th round draft pick. Come on now, this is another one of Ryan Pace's many good picks this draft. So, again, kudos to him and what he was able to do. And look, they got one of my draft crushes in Tevin Jenkins. So I only can be happy about what Ryan Pace has been able to do in this draft so far. And obviously, when you get Justin Fields to start things off, like, this has just been a pleasant surprise. And I had very low expectations, like I said in the first podcast, of what Ryan Pace can do, just maybe waiting at 20. he's definitely changed it up for sure.
Yeah, he really has. I'll see if I can find anything else for us to share. When it comes to Dazz Newsome, everything is coming from the ACC network, and I just don't think they would be as friendly as some other YouTube creators if we did throw that on here. So we'll see how that one goes. I'll keep looking. It looks like we're about 8 picks away now, so things are moving quick. We're getting there a lot. But no, that's the highlights that we're seeing there from Graham was pretty cool to see. And hey, now we have 2 Grahams on the team for now.
Yeah, there you go. For now, we'll see if Jimmy Graham is still a part of this team. But just looking at who's been picked up here, man, there goes my guy, William Bradley King. I think Washington just picked him up, the edge rusher, another Senior Bowl guy being picked up. And I wonder if that's going to be the trend here. I don't know how many Senior Bowl guys have been drafted already. There's been some, but you have Thomas Graham Jr., William Bradley King. We'll see who else kind of goes off this board here in a couple of picks, but Trevin Grimes is still maybe. So I thought I saw a rumor a month ago, maybe more recently, about Bears and the connection to Trevin Grimes. That could be another wide receiver. Who knows?
Yeah, here we go. We got some punt return highlight here from Newsome. Wait, I'm right. It's been a long week. It's been a long.
Man, he's showing. Yeah, he started off east and west, but to cut it up field, made a couple guys miss. See him here at wide receivers, the slot. Get that first down.
And this is Tar Heel Tapes. And the properties from ABC, ESPN, ACC Network. No copyright infringement intended, and we're going to say same.
Exactly.
We're just trying to show people this new bear. I gave you a shout out along the way.
That's a play that you'll see in Matt Nagy's offense right
there.
That
little flip at the end too to finish through that run. Like that was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, somewhere you see a lot of motion. Hopefully, actually, that's something that the Bears kind of go a little bit more to. I know, like last season, there wasn't as much pre-snap motion. Maybe now Matt Nagy feels like he has the guys, and with Justin Fields when he's at quarterback to do that a little bit more. I think that will definitely help. One, to distinguish what a defense is in, but also get his playmakers moving, different spots of the field to give them the best opportunity to make plays. I think that's something that we can potentially see, and we see that Newsome is kind of comfortable in that spot.
Absolutely. Well, this does stress my internet just a little bit, and I think you understand a little bit. Nick, how that goes?
Absolutely. I know. Are we?
I see Bears are on the clock here in the chat. I just don't see it officially yet, even on Twitter.
So are they on the clock?
So we're potentially on the clock is how I'm going to say it. I trust everyone in our chat. It's just that I want to make sure things are official by the time we say it. But my TV, we're at pick 243, and same thing. I see Carolina on the clock at 243 right now. And I know at this time things go quicker, so these are a little bit behind. But as soon as I see that the Bears are on the clock and some sort of mode, we'll make sure that we kind of switch gears over there. I'm actually going to switch over. I want to see what the Bears beat writers are up to, because I did see that they're talking to some players and their coaches.
And Will, you probably haven't seen this yet. What was that?
I said Thomas Graham Jr. said, "Let's get to work, Chicago," or "Let's work, Chicago."
Got it. Yeah, I mean he's a fiery guy too. He'll get into it was him and Tylan Wallace, I think, got into it. Not just being competitive in a couple reps there. But
did you see the fun fact about Khalil Herbert?
No.
He was born with 12 fingers. The extra fingers have been removed, so he's now down to 10. But he still has 6 toes on his left foot.
Okay. Interesting.
That came from Adam Hogue, by the way. He tweeted that, so I want to make sure to give him his credit too, and I'll retweet it. But that's interesting.
I wonder how that gets brought up. Like, was that a question that was asked to Herbert, or you just flat out said, "Yeah, I got some extra, fingers and toes here." But yeah, very interesting there.
I see that our coach, Chris Rumpf, the defensive lineman coach, he did coach Khalil Herbert in high school.
Interesting. Little connection there.
Yes, and Herbert says that he's a home run hitter and that feels like he can do anything. I'm an all-purpose back. I like my running backs like I like my flour, all-purpose.
There you go. We have some funny comments in the chat here where do you have 6 fingers on your right? It's 6 toes for 6 rings.
Good for planting and making cuts. Do you have 6
toes,
fingers?
Better balance.
What a way, yeah. How does that come up? Is that an extra? Did you have an extra finger at one time? Yeah. I mean, that
Very
must be
curious,
known in some circles to be able to ask that question.
Yeah, it has to be because just curious. Do you have any extra fingers or toes? Just checking. I do actually. Oh, okay. So
I saw a question here from Doyle in the chat. I'll throw it up here on our screen. We talked about it a little bit during our Justin Fields episode. Just wondering, do you think he'll be the week 1 starter? I do not. I think the Bears are going to be. I think they're telling us straight facts when they say they're going to try to make this thing like you did see with Mahomes and Alex Smith. And I feel like Matt Nagy was involved in that quarterback room, and I think he knows the value of being patient and bringing a guy along. And just look what Patrick Mahomes has been able to do. So I wouldn't mind waiting if we can get that kind of result, that yield on this investment. So for me, I think the Bears aren't lying, and unless they. And I think here's how it'll go. Maybe he won't even start week 1, but if this Bears team is in contention and they're knocking on the door of contention, and they feel like we need that boost or that next level and that it factor, and Justin Fields is it, man, I wouldn't hesitate to pull that trigger either if you can find a way to win now with Fields. I just don't think it'll be week 1.
No, neither do I. And this definitely is a Matt Nagy pick. It was Stacey Dales from the NFL Network who said that Matt Nagy went back and watched every single play from Justin Fields' career at Ohio State. I don't know if it was every single play from his career, even including Georgia, but I know it was definitely from Ohio State. So this is different in the sense that it's not just a Ryan Pace, I'm going to go not tell anybody and get Mitchell Trubisky. This is a Matt Nagy type move, and that why I think he won't start week 1 is because of what he saw and how much he was invested in the Patrick Mahomes move in Kansas City. So I think we definitely see more of a wait and see approach, not more so see, just a waiting approach. You have Andy Dalton here, you haven't paid, and Ryan Pace said he's going to start come week 1. So I think that really is the approach, and I think that's what they wanted to do with Mitchell Trubisky back in 2017. It just got so bad from Mike Glennon and his play there that they were forced to start him there because they thought he was just better. So I think it will be that Justin Fields sits for as long as. I don't know if it's the entire season. Will I don't think it's going to end up being that, but it may be close to it. To be completely honest, they have Andy Dalton, and I know someone else in the chat here put something around Nick Foles. What are they going to do with him? I think at this point now, with contractually, you're almost better off keeping him, just instead of not having the guy. Because let's say Andy Dalton goes down, then you are forcing Justin Fields onto the field maybe sooner than you would have liked. So have those 2 veterans there. Justin Fields, I know, can learn a lot from him. He's very studious. He can definitely grasp what these guys have done in their career and how he can go about taking the bits and pieces he learns from them and apply it to his career. So I think when it all comes down to it, they are going to stick to that plan for as long as they can of sitting Justin Fields and then allowing him to kind of take over when the time is right.
We got some Khalil Herbert highlights coming on here. Our screen from Mills Productions here on YouTube. Again, always making sure that we do credit the people for the work and the compilation here of some of these highlights that they've been able to do. I mean, I see a lot of good things. That energy, look at them following those blocks, hesitation, making guys miss. It's been fun as you were rambling. I was kind of just watching some of these kind of unfold, and he's someone look at that speed to get to the outside. Things were blocked up. That wasn't the intended hole that run was supposed to go to, and he was able to bounce that out, still get to the edge, and end up with the score. And I did see in his scouting report that he is best suited for zone cover like zone schemes. That's what the Bears like to do. That's their bread and butter, inside or out. He has that vision. He keeps his eyes up, and he's able to hit that hole and, find those cutback lanes too. And just look at that speed to run away from people right down Broadway Street. This guy's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. It also helps when you have, Christian Darrisaw, who was a first-round draft pick blocking on that at the left tackle position. But here we go. As a kick returner now, kind of seeing what he's about at the position, just kind of straight line. Okay. Oh, that's a nice cut there.
Okay.
There we go. That's chopping the feet and then finding a lane and outrunning everybody. Oh, go. And yeah. So, I mean, wait, I thought you didn't have any touchdowns. Was that the one that maybe got called back probably?
If I had to guess.
It's still a good cut. You still got to find it. And there's Christian Darrisaw. That's what he does. He lays people out for his running backs to get touchdowns, and that's why he's first round draft pick.
All right, so I think we'll get back to us here on the screen, and we're getting closer. I feel like that, maybe it's going a little slower than I thought it would, but we're still rolling. This has been a lot of fun to kind of extend it, and I don't know, Nick. We're not just, usually when we're in the green room and I'm just like, I'm leaning all the way back and, napping out, and it keeps your energy level up just a little bit. So it looks like we are about 3-ish picks away from that final pick here. I'm assuming for the Bears, unless they find a way to get Mr. Irrelevant with that final pick. I would hope not. I would hope we don't need to have to move up. Do you have any players that are sitting here? If you're looking at, I don't know who you have up in terms of like players available, but that would be like your immediate, once this draft is over, like high priority on drafted free agents. I mean, the fact that Shakira Brown's still sitting there is ridiculous. And I know we're looking ahead because technically we should be asking, who are you going to pick at, pick 100 and 250? But I'm just curious. So your thoughts here, and either guys that you think may not get drafted that are still sitting there, or if there's a guy that you see that makes a lot of sense at 250, I would love to hear it.
Honestly, he's been there at this point now since the start of this episode, since the start of the 5th round with K. Johnson, another wide receiver you can add to the mix. So that's a guy that, hey, if he doesn't get drafted, bring him in, see what he can do possibly. Another guy that, just kind of scrolling through some of the available players here, is if they haven't taken the Florida wide receiver Grimes, that would be another one. I'm just sticking with wide receivers apparently. I don't know why, but that's just kind of how my mind is thinking. That would be another one as well. And then really nothing stands out in terms of like, oh, we need to go sign this guy. He's an undrafted free agent, but we're going to get a good indication of what the Bears are thinking, because as soon as the draft's over, like those start coming out. It's not where they wait and, you start to see who's going to have an opportunity to get brought into camp and, at least compete there. But yeah, just scrolling through the list, there's not a lot of names that, one, I recognize at this point in the draft, and two, that I'm like, we got to go get him. This is a guy that we need. But what about you, Will? Anybody that's kind of standing out?
If I say Shakira Brown one more time, I think people are going to kill me, so I won't. But no, I'm just looking at – I'm honestly cross-referencing ESPN's top list. I'm trying to see where they're up on, like, the Beast. And that's what I'm trying to do.
I found a guy. I found a guy here. Just the name alone. His name's Dwayne Johnson. I freaking love The Rock.
Okay.
So you want Dwayne – exactly. What position? San Diego State. Dwayne Johnson. Is he a safety? Senior. Mentioned started all 13 games. Yep, he is a safety there at San Diego State. A box safety with good size and toughness. This is from Lance Zierlein from the NFL Network, but that's just a name. I saw him like, well, Dwayne Johnson. I know there was a Chris Evans from Michigan that was drafted earlier today. Obviously, being a huge Marvel fan that I am, like, Chris Evans, you do it, Captain America. Go have a great career. But I'm just kind of scrolling through guys. If anyone's yes. Well, Sean Byer, Iowa. Let's go. Come on. That's another Iowa guy that, I did have in one of my mock drafts, but it's it could be a position of need if Jimmy Graham, well, we were talking about if both Grahams are going to be on the roster come, the start of the 2021 NFL season, but you may need to look at that position maybe sooner than people are kind of expecting. But I'm glad I was scrolling through this just to see him there.
The one name that I actually just saw someone in the chat, I'll make sure I throw it up there, but I was looking over at the Beast, is Justin Hilliard from Alabama, the inside linebacker. Again, if you're trying to just if you're playing some 4D chess here and you're trying to find a guy that maybe you have a chance of not getting him here when the draft ends as an undrafted priority free agent, but he could be someone that can develop onto this team at a position that could be a need here sooner rather than later. That one would make some sense. I was trying to see if there's any other inside backers and seeing how he exactly fits. So that's been kind of on my plate, but it's kind of hard to do that so fast sometimes.
Yeah, it's multitasking gets tested on these days especially well, because when we get to the later rounds and there are players that we have not heard of that are new, especially the small school guys, it's like, let's see how we can talk about this, but then research to find, substantive info to actually relay to our listeners and our fans here. But yeah, I agree. Like we test all that multitasking on these 3 days, especially.
It looks like there's
Cardinals.
Oh, that's right. I think it's something about his medicals. I think there's something about his torn Achilles. It says right here on the Beast that the medical evaluations from teams will be key for him being drafted, but he has unquestioned NFL talent, intangibles, and determination tailor-made for the next level. But the only thing I saw was a torn Achilles, but that was in 2019, and he only missed one game last year because of a false COVID test. Oh, but maybe it's the torn Achilles, and then in 2016 he had a bicep surgery. And then the year before that, he also had another meniscus and biceps issues. So maybe that's where it comes down to.
Yeah, and if we had Mason on here, he'd probably be able to give us a better indication of how tough that is to come back from. But yeah, we were like you were probably about to say, well, having 3 people to kind of talk about these things is it helps. It definitely helps for sure. But what pick are we on, Will? You're ahead of me. Is it 248 or are we still on 247 with the Cardinals? I know the pick is in on my screen.
On the screen, it's 248 is what I'm seeing waiting to load in. But we're getting close. I'm certain the Bears have to be getting on the clock here any second.
It is a positive. I'm starting to get hungry.
Yes. No, this is the Saturday night draft weekend. Like you and I sit here all day, and we have a few snacks in between some picks, but these nights, like I gorge. Like after we do this, and I get the podcast edited and it's into the feed after the live stream, boy, do I just eat, and then I sleep, and then next thing you know, it's Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, basically, it just kind of goes by, and you're thinking too, it's starting at 11 o'clock. Like, okay, we're gonna get out of here sooner than you think we're gonna get out of here, and then it just doesn't happen. But that's the draft. It's a marathon. It's a marathon, yeah, for sure. So
we're almost there, man. We're gonna get some really good analysis here of whoever this final pick is. Maybe wrap up just overall draft class thoughts real quick. I know I'm excited for the schedule to get released later this week, and then we can talk about, hey, we have players. We know we can have a good sense of what this roster is looking like, and we already know who we're playing. But we're going to know the order. And more importantly, we're going to know when we're going to L.A. for that road trip.
We're going to – okay, yeah, sure.
See?
See?
Sure. See how
I'm down to go to a game. Man, it would be nice if it was later in the year because that gives us more of an opportunity to see Justin Fields if they decide to go to him. So be later. Come on, push it back. Know what we want.
And I don't even know if I said this on the podcast or if it was after the fact when we're just kind of talking and kind of just still like absorbing that news. But I feel like Justin Fields' first career start, if we know it in advance, I want to be at that. Like, I feel like that's like going to be a historic moment for this franchise, and I want to be there in person. And again, I don't care if it's across the country. I'm going to go to that thing.
Yeah, I'm all with you. And looks like Vegas is definitely the runner, or the winner here of which game we should go to. And hey, I'm all for it. I'm down to go to Vegas, have a good time.
Justin Fields updated his bio on Twitter to say he's the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I did look yesterday and it said Ohio State, so I'm glad that he got to his Twitter. He has more important things to do for a couple days, I bet, after being drafted there in the first round. But his bio's updated, and the Bears are officially on the clock.
Let's go.
For the final
what we didn't
time.
talk about, Will, and I think this is really important. Justin Fields' adorable dog, Uno. Have you seen that little guy? Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Like, adorable. I think.
And the name
I wonder
is
if it's
perfect.
the same. Oh, perfect. Yeah. I wonder if it's the same dog that Roquan Smith, or it looks very similar. Don't know if they're exactly the same, but cute little doggies there. Got to bring up Uno because adorable.
Oh, man. Pick 250. Bears on the clock. Rams pick is in. Now we wait, and I'm excited to see how this is going to end up. It's kind of shaken out. We'll see exactly what happens here. I'm not going to even speculate who I think it's going to be, who I want it to be. I'm just going to be patient. The buzzword of the week, and we're going to find out who it is, and we can talk about him.
Yep, that's all we can do, Will. At this point now, we made it. Last pick of the draft. Or what, for the Bears. Last pick for the Bears draft. So, see what they do here.
Just best player available. Whoever you think you would want right now, hands down. And now there's only a few more picks after this. Perhaps it's more of, when you get to the undrafted free agents, you don't get to choose them. They have to choose you. They have to sign with you. So if you had a guy out of that whole group that you would hate to see go elsewhere, and that's the one you want, then that's who I would get here. I mean, that's what it's worth. It's kind of like a little bit of a security blanket for that. So that's what I would do. But who am I besides the guy behind a mic? And there's only 9 more picks after this one, so just gotta choose wisely.
Yep, absolutely. We are guys behind mics, but we got some knowledge as well, Will. So
and the Bears say the pick is in, which means I'm gonna say the pick is in. And now we wait to find out. And it goes to the other team. We're good. Technical, not difficulties, just nuances. All right, come on, loading.
Let's get it.
Loading. Do you have any last thoughts before this pick comes through, other than what I mentioned?
The only thing, and this has nothing to do with the Bears pick, but I would like the Bears to put out a video or have a reporter there to get into the draft room, because I think those are always the coolest kind of things you can see. I forgot which team allowed that to kind of happen, where you could see what's kind of going on behind the scenes. Like that would be neat. I would like to see that, but I saw someone's draft room, and that's why I'm saying that right now. It's just refreshing the Twitter.
Something's wrong. I keep hitting home on my Twitter on my desktop, and no tweets have popped up in 20 seconds. I'm like, no way.
What's going on here? It's not right. The Bird app, as some people call it.
Okay, Larry Mayer, the first one to come through with it. All right, they must have whispered it to his ear. BYU nose tackle Khyiris Tonga with the 250th pick. So going defensive tackle, going nose tackle. So the Bears, Nick, I think Brandon probably wishes that he was still doing the podcast with us, because this has been the draft at the trenches of his dreams so far, with all the investment that the Bears are putting into the offensive line, and then wrapping up the draft here at nose tackle. So again, Khyiris, I'm going to say Tonga, Tonga, pick number 250. The Bears are ending with a nose tackle, which is interesting because Eddie Goldman's coming back this year. They already have some decent depth up front. So I don't know if this is, again, another long-term play, or if they did feel like there's a need for another big body up front for this defense.
Well, you also got to remember they did. Roy Robertson-Harris is no longer a part of the team. I'm pretty sure Jenkins is no longer here as well. I don't know why I'm blanking if he is or not. But the Bears do go to end this draft 2 defensive players, right? So first, not that it's a run on defensive players, but, they ended off consecutive guys here. So just kind of looking at what he was able to do 2020. Remember this condensed kind of 11 games. So what do you got there, Will?
I saw that in 2019 he had a rushing touchdown. So apparently big men who play defensive line, who run for scores, play in Chicago. But that's the first thing I saw when I pulled up his profile.
Nice. He was a team captain last year in 2020, 2.5 tackles for loss, 1 forced fumble, 2.5 sacks. In his career at BYU, he had 7.5 sacks in 4 years there. He also blocked a field goal in 2018. So he has blocked field goal 2018, a rushing touchdown in 2019, becomes a team captain. If you block a field goal, you rush a touchdown, and you play on the defense, you're a team captain. That's just how it kind of goes there. But what is this guy? 6'2", 325 pounds, 5.0740. Okay. Bench press 35 reps. All right. But how do you pronounce his name? Khyiris? Khyiris. Is how you pronounce this. Khyiris Tonga. That's an awesome last name too. Tonga. What else we got here? Looking at the beast here, Will. 3-year starter at BYU. Tonga's a nose tackle and head coach is multiple fronts, usually lining up head up over the center. He struggled through a tough childhood, but he found direction with his adopted family, the church, and BYU football. He compiled 130 tackles and 15 tackles for loss over the last 4 seasons. An aggressive space eater. I am really white on the screen. All right. Tonga is active in the trenches with his slanting quickness and upper body strength to shed/toss blockers. He improved his conditioning and chase skills over the years, but his pad level and anchor need to develop better consistency. And here's the final sentence here. Overall, Tonga will face limitations on third down in the NFL, but he is powerful with his hands and creates congestion at the line of scrimmage. He projects as a rotational nose piece. So that is the synopsis of Khyiris Tonga.
Now, remember when Tevin Jenkins was in the 99th percentile for his bench reps?
Yeah.
Tonga, 98th percentile. He put up 40 reps at the bench. So he's someone, wicked, strong players is something that the Bears are that's in the first round, second round, and then here now and heck, I mean, let's not even shy away. Justin Fields is super strong for a quarterback as well. So there's some themes that we're seeing here with all of these picks: strength, nasty demeanor up front, both sides of the ball, and then getting guys in skill positions that can make plays after contact, after the catch with the balls in their hand. So I like the theme or themes that Ryan Pace has kind of put together here throughout this one. But yeah, 40 bench. He also is in the 92nd percentile with a 7.2 three-cone drill. So for a big man, he can move. He's also at the 92nd percentile. He had a 117-inch broad jump. So he's a guy that he's a little compact with his size, 6'2", 296, but he's a pretty decent athlete, and he's wicked strong. So this is... Could we have the poor man's Aaron Donald? No, that's too big of a stretch. But just saying, why not?
Yeah, why not is right. But that is a good point that you mentioned, Will. It's been pointed out before, and I think it was Chris Long, Kyle Long's brother, who pointed out, I think after one of the wild card game between the Bears and Eagles, that the Bears weren't physical enough. They just didn't have that edge to them, and that's how the Eagles kind of knew they were going to come out with the victory there. Well, this draft, I think, is just really addressing the lack of physicality that maybe was there on both sides of the football, more so the offense than rather the defense. But you see the guys that they've drafted, there's this nastiness to them. There's this physicalness to them. There's this strength, clearly, in guys like Tonga. So that is something that, like you mentioned, Will, could be a theme here. So that's obviously something that you like to see.
I got to correct everything I said. PFF, I'm going to email them. They need to reorder this thing for next year because they have a picture of Tonga with all this stuff, but apparently the stats are the guy above him. So, come on. Oh, well. So he's not in the 92nd percentile of anything. So if I go find it real quick, He had 28 reps at the bench, which is 70th percentile. His cone drill was a 7.8, which is 25th percentile. And his broad jump was only 105, which is 41st. So not nearly the athlete that I thought when I was reading through those stats. I apologize. I don't like to do any misinformation, so I want to make sure I do clear that up. And PFF will get an email from me, someone that, at my end, that understands user experience. It's not so friendly or intuitive. But what I like is what I'm seeing is rare range for a nose tackle. He can track down QBs and ball carriers. Even though he's bigger at 320, he's not noticeably fat. He's just really strong and built. And he's pretty light on his feet for a guy that plays in the interior of the defensive line. So those are some things that really stand out to me over in his time. And the fact that he's a team captain, I think, is something that shouldn't go unsaid. You already mentioned it. But the fact that he's a team captain just shows, again, another strong leader that the Bears can add to their locker room. And I guess you mentioned about his hardship as a kid. That resonates with me. And the fact that he was able to kind of find his family, I think is really it's tremendous. And I'm glad that he was able to do that, to kind of put himself where he is today and finding himself that support system. So people that go through some adversity like that early on are people that have high admiration from me. And I'm very glad to kind of hear his story, learn more about it, and it makes me appreciate this pick just a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. He was also an East-West Shrine Bowl invite, but of course, due to COVID, that was actually canceled. Speaking a little bit more to his background, he was a tight end and defensive end and did play club rugby. And I was actually just watching rugby not too long ago. Well, I don't even really understand how it kind of works, but it's physical. You need to be physical to play that sport. And it looks like Khyiris. I'm sorry I think I said Kyrie. I don't know why. Khyiris Tonga has that physicality to him, and you have to, as a defensive lineman in the trenches, primarily lining up opposite of a center. You need to have that and be a part of that. And yeah, it's just I think also someone mentioned it, like Akeem Hicks is not getting any younger. And this is not saying this is a move. You're going to get a guy with your 250th pick in the draft and just, replace Akeem Hicks. That's not saying that. Just saying that is a good thing to point out, that he is obviously getting older. You're going to need to have guys also in place, but getting in Eddie Goldman definitely helps. Seeing hopefully just Bilal Nichols continue to improve will be great to see as well. And then kind of round out this defensive line, the rotation. It's good to have a guy like this, someone who does bring that physicality to him.
He's also pretty old. He's going to be 25 years old by the time the season starts. 25 for a rookie. Not that that's an old age by any means. That's actually behind both of us now. It's crazy how that happens. Like, we were starting this podcast and people were about the same age as us coming out. And now we're older than all these kids. But 25 for a prospect, something I just want to make sure it's noted. So that's something as well. And I just like seeing about, the strength that he has and that he's a powerful player up front. And maybe he's not a guy on third down, but also there are other downs that you need to play and be effective up front in order to give yourself favorable third down position on, both sides of the ball, but in this case, defense. So for me, someone that can maybe give, Eddie Goldman a breather, or if you want to go real heavy in a goal line package, an extra big body that's strong up front, to me, this makes a lot of sense as well. And apparently, one of his small things, did you mention his PBUs?
I did not. How many PBUs does it got?
12.
As a guy that lines up in front of the center, that's pretty impressive. Be able to time it up perfectly. And look, if you don't get to the quarterback, which you're not going to on most snaps, you can still impact the play and prevent it actually from being executed by getting your hand on the football. So you definitely love to see a stat like that.
Yeah, 12 career pass breakups just by, knowing where a quarterback's probably going to go, getting in those passing lanes and getting your hands up and just watching and having that good timing and anticipation. So, again, small nuances that maybe you don't hear about here and there from especially a defensive lineman, a nose tackle, but that gives me a little jazz, not going to lie. I like that one a lot. All right, Nick, what's your best case, worst case for Tonga?
Tonga, especially early on in his career, if he can find himself a spot in this rotation, this defensive line rotation, and it's very sparingly. It's not going to be something where you're going to see you're going to hear Tonga's name called, at Soldier Field or anything like that. But it's very sparingly that he can find his way into the rotation and do his job, essentially. And if it is in those heavier sets where you need to be in goal line packages and you just need big bodies, and he can hold his ground and not get pushed out of the way and just, open up a running lane for an opposing running back, the best case is that he can do that job and fill that role, especially early on in his career, because obviously it's not going to be the biggest, special teams. Right? It's going to be on the defensive line and being in those bigger packages for the defense. So that's kind of the best case. Worst case is that, again, maybe it's just not, he can't find that spot and that he gets pushed down the depth chart. And look, being a 250th overall pick, you have to fight for every day that you're there at training camp and show this coaching staff now that has plenty of offensive linemen that are going to be trying to earn their reps. You got to be able to beat those guys. And if he can't, he won't be on the team.
This is a guy that I would not be surprised starts his career on the practice squad. But someone that if injuries happen, he'll be one of the first people, called up, elevated to kind of fill out over there. I don't see an immediate path for him to be an active part of the 53-man roster, just due to the fact that nose tackle is already positioned that you don't see all the reps. You're not usually there on third down. Eddie Goldman's a rare breed where you can, but he's someone where I think throughout time can develop to be, I think best case is someone that maybe, and again, this is best case, you can develop to give you an Eddie Goldman replacement once that contract's up. And there's a few years left on that. So that's a long-term play, and that's probably best case, just quality starter. Worst case is someone that can't break, like you said, into the rotation and become effective in this league. And I know there are some concerns that even though he's super strong and he's someone that played, he played at BYU, and he wasn't dominating some of that lesser talent that he was going up against. So going against NFL talent, he may struggle a little bit as well. So you have to kind of figure that out. But I like the nimbleness that he displays, and we'll see if that can translate to something that can be a success here. How would you grade this pick?
I think is it the biggest need on the Bears? No. Could you maybe gotten an inside linebacker, and that would have played out better? Possibly. It's a guy that, again, maybe there's not too much upside, but I can't be so critical of a seventh-round draft pick because maybe he does find his way into the rotation. And Mario Williams is out for the first 2 games, and you see him make an impact a little bit sooner. But if I had to grade it, it's not a super exciting pick. I don't want to give it. I'll go C+, because why not? And that's not me being really critical of it, but we'll see. It's a 250th overall pick with a defensive lineman who doesn't have the most sacks in his career, but he does have those passes defended. But yeah, it's a kind of, I have to see what he's about, and not having obviously watched anything of him, give it a C+. We'll see where it can go from here.
Yeah, C makes sense. We'll see where it goes. I someone that it's nothing you can for all these reasons he's going to be an impact player out of the gate. And I think in the 7th round, though, you're not going to really find some of those players anyway, so I didn't expect it. So I will actually up your C+. I'll say B-, because anytime you can add big, strong dudes to your line on either side of the ball, you're going to be a better football team for it. So for me, I'll give it a B-, because defensive tackle is something I always wanted to mock, but I thought it'd be totally inaccurate and no way they would do it, but they did. So maybe that surprised me as well. You want to grade the entire draft class real quick? I feel like just with Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins and everything else underneath it is gravy. So I'll start it off and I'll kick it off and I'll say A. That's it. I don't need to go into every pick and explain why. I think Bears fans know. We've had plenty of content throughout these past 3 days to express why I feel that way. But I think A just makes so much sense. We got a guy that could be a potential franchise quarterback who sees himself as a franchise quarterback, and we got ourselves some nasty players up front. It's just, to me, I'm so happy about this draft. It couldn't have gone much better.
Yeah, well, it's hard to imagine a scenario where the Bears come out with more potential impactful players than they do with what they did these past 3 days. You have your franchise quarterback, like you said. You have 2 tackles, addressed for the future. You have a nickel, or however you want to view Thomas Graham, you have him there. You also drafted a wide receiver and a kick returner. So those are needs on this defense right now. And guess what? Ryan Pace saw that and addressed them. Addressed them with the guys that he did. He showed conviction and got, the players that he did. 2 first-rounders, I think, in the first 2 days with Fields and Jenkins. Obviously, a consensus pick from multiple people that Jenkins should have been a first-rounder, and he thinks that as well. So, yeah, this is an A for me too. Ryan Pace, credit to you, man. Like, he had a lot of, fire with what was going on in the beginning of the offseason with people, how they're very critical of him, us included, of what he kind of did and what this franchise direction it could have been going. But, man, he showed us that he knew what he needed to do, and he executed. And so now we're hoping that these picks can execute on the football field and ultimately make this team one that we can really get behind again. I think this draft, though, puts a lot of people back into wanting to see what the Bears can do. I know my brother, for instance, is like, I'm not even going to watch games like how last season went. But now with this draft, I think you can get back on the bandwagon, I guess, and just see what this Bears team can do.
Yeah, I think I tweeted it this morning. It felt like the early portion of this draft, like Bears were like, no, we're going to hire social media guys. Hey, keep your finger on the pulse. What do the fans want? Who do they want to see? And then they did everything they could to get those 2 players in Justin Fields and Tevin Jenkins. And just to get in our good graces again. I mean, Nick, we went to a spot where we weren't even buying merch for a while, right? Like, no. And a lot of fans were in the same boat. Like, I'm not going to support this team with my money. You draft Fields immediately, like the second most popular jersey on Fanatics. Like, it's like, okay, we're good. I love you again. I'm ready. And I told you that night, like, I'm reinvigorated where it's like, all right, let's do another 555 episodes. And I want it to be the Justin Fields era. And I want to have multiple perennial seasons where we are contenders and we are having a lot of fun football to talk about, because we've had a lot of mediocre and average football on this podcast to discuss. There's a real chance that can change.
I hope so, Will. I really, really hope so, because it gets so stagnant when it's just 8-8, knowing that the Bears are not going anywhere. But they have a chance, and this is their best chance. Let's be completely. This is their best chance to get out of that mold and become something like a contender, like a legitimate, consistent contender. That's hard to say 5 times fast in the NFC, but to represent like the city of Chicago, how it should be represented. So it's a wait and see. And I know I say that so much, and it's probably overdone, but
it's accurate though.
It's accurate, and I think this is like I said, this is the best opportunity for the Bears to get out of that. If it doesn't happen, again, they're cursed. We support a cursed franchise if they cannot get out of this with this team that they currently have developing here, and with the prospects that they just got these past 3 days.
Legitimate, consistent contender. Yeah, I've had a while to think on it. You were just spitballing it on the fly, but those are some words.
The 3 words to kind of wrap up this draft is that, do these picks put them in line to be that?
I like that a lot. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for dinner. How about you?
Starving. We've been here since 11 o'clock chewing on, snacks and stuff like that, but it's time to eat.
It's time for some nutrition. And honestly, like, the Bears, like, with all of this, yeah, let's eat, let's get it, let's go. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us throughout the entire draft weekend. It really does mean a lot to us, and it makes it so much more fun. All the live stream interaction, everyone listening to the podcast, everyone, interacting with us on social media for the past few days. This is what we've been missing. Like, the last 2 seasons have been so dark and in despair, and everyone's getting so polarized, and we're all coming together again as Bears fans, and it's fun to kind of see happen over the past few days. Let's keep it this way. And I just want to just keep moving forward, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the schedule looks like, and we can continue to get ourselves closer to this upcoming season. I hope this summer, like, we blink and it's over and we can get the training camp. That's how excited I am right now. But that's going to do it for our 2021 Chicago Bears draft coverage. The 5th year we've done this, and I think it's my favorite.
I think so too, Will. There's a lot of potential here, and that's what makes it so great.
For sure, but that's it. Rest up. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the early part of your next week, and we'll be back soon with a schedule reaction episode. And surely we're going to have some more thoughts about this draft class after a few nights to kind of sleep and assess it. But until then, bear down, Chicago.